Hey guys, welcome back for another edition of K-Talk. I'm Adriana.
And I'm Randy.
And today we are going to talk to you about K-dramas. More specifically, we're going to talk about things that we don't always like about K-dramas. Kind of things that irk us a little bit, are pet peeves when it comes to dramas. Things that they just do over and over that just really bug us. So why don't you start us off with the one that you were talking about?
Well, I understand that dramas are supported by companies and product placement. Like, I understand that completely. I guess the thing that I notice is when it's awkward, when they aren't able to sort of seamlessly intertwine whatever it is they're promoting with a scene. So, a lot of TVN dramas have Subway or have a sandwich shop as a
date or a talk place.
Yes. And not even that. It's just like I'm randomly like eating a Subway sandwich.
Yeah.
And instead of like just eating it, you're like...
They're ordering.
But
they're talking about how easy it is to order.
Look at this beautiful sandwich.
And they're holding it all weird.
So...
and they talk about how delicious it is.
Yeah. So while I understand it, I just wish that it could be done better in certain dramas.
See, I don't have as much of a problem with the product placement in Korean dramas. Like, I get it. It's still awkward and stuff like that. But in comparison to C-dramas, the product placement in C-dramas really bugs me because it's way over the top.
I do think it's a little bit worse.
Yeah.
In some of those. I remember, Love 020. There was this, they were nuts. They were like this snack treat or like a drink. And so every time they're at any sort of gathering or even just at dinner, like it's the same drink every single time.
Exactly. So like the ones that have been recent that I'm just like, oh my God, can we stop talking about these face masks? Like there was one drama, I forgot what it was, but they were talking about these face masks, and every little while the face masks would appear and they'd be like, oh yeah, have you tried this? This is really great
as a gift.
Yeah, and it was like it was like a total endorsement. It wasn't just like, oh hey, I'm gonna put this on my face. They were talking about like the product.
Actually, there was a historical one that I watched one time, and they were actually promoting face masks in the historical one because
oh my God,
the person had actually like traveled through time, and she had like a backpack with her or something like this, and she had the face masks in her backpack.
I didn't see that one.
And yeah, I was like,
yeah, so sometimes I think they do it just a little too obvious and over the top, and it's not just it doesn't become product placement. It becomes an endorsement, and
it takes you out of the drama.
Yeah, like, you know, I think which one was it? Oh my God, it was one of the the one that we talked about. They did a season 2 about it, where the girl had leukemia. The guy pretended that she had leukemia.
Oh, Well-Intended Love. Yes. That was awful.
In season 2, they were promoting this like serum and stuff, and they just kept talking about it to the point where I was like, I'm done, you know. And then it's come out in like 3 dramas, so that a little bit overdone. Okay, so I would say my first big pet peeve is coffee cups, teacups, any sort of drink that somebody puts in their hand. It is empty, and you can tell it's empty, and the way they hold it, the way they just like, if you're holding like really hot coffee, you're usually kind of careful with it. And they'll just be like, oh, here. And I'm like, or they'll pretend to drink. And I'm sorry, since I've studied video production and stuff like that, I notice certain little things, and it's like you could tell that the weight of the cup is like empty. You could just tell. It's very different the way that you move with, you know, a drink in your hand that is full and hot versus a empty cup, and you're just like, they hand them a cup they just got from the from the counter, and they're like, "Oh yeah, thanks." Really? You know that coffee is like 200 degrees, but you're okay with just downing it? So that it gets on my nerves. It does. After seeing it in so many dramas, I'm just like, really? Can just put water in it. Just even put water in it would be enough to not make me want to go. It's stupid, but it does bother me. What's your next one?
Well, that's the same thing. I mean, this goes hand in hand with the one that I have. But I understand, like, when they're filming things, if people wear glasses, there's that reflection as far as the glass goes. Yeah. But when they take the glass out, and you can obviously tell that there's no glass in there, it's just kind of like, maybe the character doesn't need to wear glasses.
Exactly.
Then.
Yes.
So,
like that one too. Yeah. Just like, I forgot which drama it was in that they actually made fun of the fact that they did that, because he's like, "Oh yeah, let me just get this off my glasses," and he's like poking. It's like, all right. And at that point, I thought that was hilarious. But yes, if I get the glare, and I've caught the lights and reflections and stuff from the glasses, but if the character or the person playing that character doesn't need the glasses, then why?
Maybe they don't need to wear that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I was gonna say was like, when you have a character that's going somewhere, and they have one suitcase, and then they get to where they're going, but all of a sudden they have like 10 different coats that they have available for them to wear. Yeah. And it's like, where did those coats come from?
Where did all the endless amount of clothes come from? That is also on my list, because you'll see like they'll shoot their room or their little tiny apartment.
They're the smallest,
with like a tiny coat rack that has like 10 pieces, not even 10 pieces of clothes on it. Okay. And yet they never ever wear the same thing.
Or the same coat. There was one with Park Min Young, and I really enjoyed the drama. But she went with like one suitcase, and she had a different coat for every day, and all the coats were beautiful. Like, her wardrobe was beautiful. But
where did it come from?
In my head, I was thinking, where did she get all the coats? So
yeah, I also agree with that one. It's like, and also like in tandem with that one is the poor girl or poor character who has the most stylish clothes. It's like, they start off poor, and so this kind of goes into my next one. So like the poor character who starts out poor, and then all of a sudden by the end of the drama, they're like well off, even though they haven't done anything.
I mean, like, their life circumstance hasn't changed.
Exactly. Like, they haven't changed jobs. They haven't gotten extra money from somewhere. Like, all of a sudden they go from rags to kind of almost riches, pseudo riches, but nothing in their life status has changed. Like, they haven't all of a sudden won the lottery, gotten a new job or something like that. And specifically, like, the one that stands out the most in my head is Vagabond.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah. You start out at the beginning, they're shutting off his electricity. He's got no money to like pay for his nephew's school. He doesn't even have money to pay for a taxi. And yet within a couple of episodes, he's flying all over the world. And I'm like, where'd you get the money? Who's funding you to go everywhere? So that kind of stuff, like where, it's so, there's such a plot hole. Like, where is this money come from?
Like with all these things, it's a little distracting and takes you out of the story, and then you start thinking about other things like, this doesn't really make sense. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So the next one I'm going to talk about kind of goes hand in hand with what I just talked about with rags to riches and like being all over the place. But like characters just being able to involve themselves in any crime scene. Like, have you ever tried to go to a crime scene? I mean, come on, like, who's going to just let anyone waltz in who isn't an expert, who isn't working in the police field or police department or anything like that, and then all of a sudden they're attached to a police unit, they're the ones who solve everything and this goes with my next pet peeve, is the cops being so irrationally stupid in certain dramas.
I do find that in certain dramas, I guess maybe this is the fault of the way that it's written or the plot of the story, but they need a certain character or a group of characters to be bumbling or to just constantly miss this thing. Because I remember we just watched Sisyphus not that long ago, and there were these elite group of sort of like, I don't know, they seemed almost like FBI. They were some kind of secret government agency, and they had all these cars and weapons and gadgets and all these kinds of things, and they were trying to catch two people, and it was like kind of like Rocky and Bullwinkle, where there were tons of these guys, two people, and the two people always escaped.
Yep. Always.
And it was just like, how can you be that bad?
Yeah. I just feel like sometimes, sometimes the disparity in the intelligence of your characters can be a little too overwhelming. So you have these seasoned cops. Now, I'm not talking about like some rookie. I'm talking about seasoned cops. And then you have this guy that just comes off the street and all of a sudden he says something and everybody's like, oh, I didn't think of that. Really? You've only been working in the police force, you said, for what, 25 years?
Yeah,
Like, that kind of thing bugs me. Because it's like you're just bringing this character in who has no specialization, no nothing, and all of a sudden, just because they have a vested interest in this crime case, because it's related to somebody in their family or something to them, that all of a sudden
they're the ones that are going to solve it, even though this other person has experience and better resources, but they don't solve it.
And just like walking onto the crime scene, like we recently both watched the one Sell Your Haunted House. She walked onto like 3 or 4 crime scenes and no one said a word to her. No one, not a single cop even tried to stop her. And I'm like, okay, so you're just, you've got a crime scene. You've got this person walking in out of nowhere without a badge, without anything, and she's just going to walk through your crime investigation scene. Yeah, that kind of stuff kind of bugs me. So I have a lot of bugs. I don't know, I forgot. But the next one I'm going to talk about has to do with winter, and so I'm going to kind of condense all of them into one.
Oh, is it like, I always feel so bad for everybody in dramas in winter because oh my gosh, like with Healer, I felt so bad for everybody in Healer. Like their ears were always red, even if they were indoors. And like you could see their breath anytime anybody talked, and all I want to be like is warm those kids up, warm those people up.
Yeah. So dramas in winter.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest pet peeves that I have about dramas in winter are them going on a date to the beach in the winter. Who the heck wants to go to a date to the beach in the dead of winter? Like, I'm sorry, the beach is awesome, but you tell me you want to go on a picnic or a date, or let's just go see the beach in the middle of winter, and I'm going to walk out on you. There's no way you're going to get me to go and splash around in 0-degree water. No. Opening windows in the middle of winter. Like, why would you do that? You're in a perfectly comfortable, warm home, and you're just going to open the window. And the one that I remember, and I was just like, why? Is I'll Go to You When the Weather's Warmer or something like that, with the girl from Secretary Kim.
Oh, that's the one I was talking about, where she had so many coats.
Yeah, okay, yes, okay. So remember her house froze over even because the pipes burst and everything?
Yeah.
But here she is opening the windows in the middle of winter, just like for fun. And I'm like, what? And it looked cold. It did. You have to realize that South Korea, like Seoul, and Chicago have very similar weather. Very similar weather in terms of temperature. So if you think of a January, February in Chicago, that's what you're looking at in Korea during that time too. So yeah, no, those kinds of things bug me. Or where they're on the bus and all of a sudden they open the window. Like nobody's gonna say anything. I remember there was one drama where they were like,
a drama where they close the window.
Close the window, it's cold. I'm like, finally, somebody said it. Like, who wants to open or the car window, you know, like in
No, I just feel so bad for everybody in those dramas just because
they're miserable.
Well, and you'll see like behind the scenes footage where they'll be covered in these big puffy coats after a scene is done, and they're jumping around trying to get warm, and it's just like, save our actors. Yeah,
like why risk frostbite?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna bring up two more. So this one is one that absolutely, it irritates me to a level that I cannot even describe. It's really bad. But
now I want to know, what is it?
So there have been several scenes where somebody gets hurt, physically hurt, either shot, stabbed, whatever. Okay.
Is it the wake up?
No, well, no. It's more like the EMTs are right there and no one's doing anything.
Oh.
Like the person is bleeding out and you're just, and the main characters, you know, whoever's on the ground, the other person's like, oh my God, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Or like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? Or come to your senses. Come to your senses. And the EMTs are just standing around. And I'm just like, does no one have a sense of emergency?
I do think like when somebody is like shaking somebody that's obviously been in some kind of accident and they're like, on a gurney being wheeled somewhere, but they're like, oh, please wake up. And this happens in like American dramas too. Where it's like, oh, you can fight it, you can do this, and they're obviously unconscious and, you know, hurt in some way, and it's just like, maybe I get we're acting, but don't like shake the person.
But no, there's been like several scenes where like the person is like bleeding profusely, and the EMTs are like, or the cops too, are standing around, and then they're dealing with other stuff, and then finally they come back to this poor soul sitting there bleeding out, like, get an ambulance over here. It's been 5 minutes. Like, did you not think to call an ambulance? You know? So yeah, that one really irritates me just because it makes my anxiety level kind of rise, and I'm just like, oh my God, that poor person's just bleeding while everybody's just doing whatever they want. And so the last one I'm going to talk about relates to women in K-dramas. And they're kind of, the way they become very weak as soon as a male character is introduced into the scene. Or they go from being a very strong person to a very weak person because there's a man on scene. And that kind of bugs me a bit. Quite a bit.
But would you say that's more prevalent in older dramas versus?
I've seen it in some new dramas where like the girl is like the strong individual, but then all of a sudden, you know, she's partnered up with this guy, and then she forgets how to fight. Like, for example, one of the ones where it like completely irked me so much was a Suspicious Partner. She talks about being a 4th degree black belt. She constantly beats up guys, but as soon as what's his name?
Ji Chang-wook.
Yes, is in the scene with her, she forgets how to do anything. Like when they go to arrest to try to stop that stalker guy, you know, granted he grabbed her, but you know, she was all like acting super scared, and I'm like, yet a couple scenes back you were beating up people, and a couple scenes after that you're beating up people. So that kind of flip-flop of the way that women are portrayed really bothers me sometimes. You know, the same like Emergency Couple. There she is, and then, you know, she starts out as this weak character, but then she's got this character progression where all of a sudden, you know, everybody's like praising her, and they're like, oh, you're doing really well, and blah, 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 and this and that. And almost all through the drama, she's doing so well. And everybody's kind of like, you're doing really great. And it makes her feel empowered because her character was really weak in the beginning. But then at the end, she has another flip and she goes back to being kind of weak and going, what do I do? What do I do? What do you mean, what do you do? You were taking charge like an episode ago. Like that kind of stuff bothers me a bit. And it's more, and it has nothing to do with it being a woman, because if this was a male character, because it happens with certain male characters too, it also bugs me. It's like, don't change their personality. Don't flip them.
Just because they're in a relationship?
Yeah. Like, don't flip the dynamic so much. And I get it. Yes. You know, you get into a relationship or something and you try to like be a little bit different, but the flip is just way too much. Like the 360 is just a little too much for me. So yeah, it doesn't matter whether it happens more with the female characters, but like it just, you're regressing a character and it just doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love K-dramas. I still watch them. I've watched Emergency Couple like 6 times. And I've watched it for the mom, because I love her. Oh my God, she's hilarious. And I've watched this, I'm rewatching Suspicious Partner right now. I still love the dramas and I'll still watch them, even though there's certain things that irk me about them.
Oh yeah, but there's
so much good.
Definitely. I mean, there's things in other dramas too. Like I really like an Australian series that came out a few years ago, like Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, and I love that show. But there, I think, like the main character Franny like has a gun, right, and she brings it out, but every time she brings it out, she loses it. Like. So I kind of think like maybe you should just stop carrying the gun, you know, like
yeah,
you could accidentally hurt somebody else and it doesn't do any good anyways because it ends up being tossed on the floor somewhere. So just stop carrying the gun. So there's in all things that we watch, whether it's American, British, Korean,
there's always good and bad. Like even American shows. I've watched American shows where I'm like, what happened here? I've watched British shows and been like, oh, this is awesome, and then all of a sudden something happens and I'm like, what?
It's just
why?
I guess it's really nice, when you have a drama and you can sort of, when you don't have those things, like you have really good writing and acting and a story really comes together, and you don't, like, even though there may be some of those things, like it's not enough to take you out of the drama.
Story. It's bad when it starts to take you out of the story. And that's why we talk about these as pet peeves, because we're watching something that we really like and then something happens and all of a sudden we're thinking about this one thing and not about enjoying what's going on screen. So yeah, but anyway, that I think covers more than enough about pet peeves. So if you guys have any pet peeves that we missed, and trust me, I have a lot more to talk about, but I'm not going to torture us for 2 hours. So yeah, if you have any pet peeves yourself, share them with us. We'd like to see what you guys may have seen in dramas that we missed, and share that info with us. So that's going to be it for us today. Don't forget to come back for more K-Talk content soon.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.